father. And when I say lost my husband, he did not pass away, but I went through a divorce. And, after being with someone for 10 years, it felt like death. I had 2 children. They were 3 and 5. I basically got into a marriage and I put every egg I had into that basket. And so when that basket collapsed, everything broke. I had a 2-person income house, a 2-person income vehicle, a 2-person income daycare, 2-person income bills, but now it's down to 1-person, me. And then when that income was down to 0 from being laid off, I had to figure it out. So I started a business at the time, Ebony and Ivory Professional Services, just to get my feet in the door of something. I'm like, I got to make things happen. And that wasn't easy. But then I had women who were saying, oh my God, I watched you go through a divorce and you went through it seamlessly. You weren't messy. You weren't throwing jabs on social media. You just go through stuff and you get through stuff. And, being that they were asking me, how did you do that? I felt like, well, this is not an appropriate conversation to call Ebony and Ivory for, because we're supposed to be helping you start your business, not getting in your business. And after a while, I said, you know what? I'm not the first woman to get a divorce. I'm not the first woman to lose a parent. I'm not the first woman to get laid off. So now I have an outlet for these women. What am I going to do with that? And I remember trying to figure it all out. And I had a coach by the name of Victoria Baylor. I took interest and I took a liking to her. I heard so many things about her. And so I took an interest to her, and she kind of helped me put it all together. She was like, you're doing all these things, but let's figure out what you're supposed to be doing. Tell me 2 things that you like doing. I said, well, I like helping people start their business, and I definitely have an affinity for helping women. So let's do 2 things together. Let's help women start their businesses, but let's also help women figure out who they are. And in order for me to help another woman figure out who she was, I had to first figure out who I was. So then, I was living life in black and white. And the reason why I chose those colors for my first business was because that's how I operate. I don't have any gray area. It's either yay or nay with me. I don't meet in the middle. It's not a slow this, yes, or whatever. So she said, let's try some color. And I was like, nah, black and white is very simple. It's very simple. Let's try some color. And she's like, she sent me this color palette and everything. And I was just like, nah, I'm not painting the wall. You're talking about getting dressed. I'm going to stick to the black and white. But nonetheless, I went back to a period in time where I felt like I was the most resilient. And that was in high school. I had to battle a lot of things. I had a sick parent and I had an over-the-road truck driving father. So at the age of 11, I was making decisions as if I was 21. I was cooking and frying chicken and folding clothes and writing bills out, taking them to the hospital, letting my mom sign them, bring the bills back, put an envelope on them. And on my way to school, I would intentionally miss the bus so that I could take the city bus in order to mail off our bills, so that when we came home, when my dad got off the road, we were not in the dark. So those times I channeled back to that, and I said, well, my school colors were, yellowish, that mustard and white. So I get to have my black and white, and I just put some yellow with it. With that became the Renaissance color for Black women. We were like wearing yellow. I was like, oh, okay. Everybody wearing yellow. All right, cool. Thanks, Victoria. Got me a color business. And the word resilient came from a young lady who watched me struggle. And at my Ebony and Ivory second anniversary, her speech was, I never met someone who was so resilient. And I sat on it for a while. I was like, what's she talking about? We talking about Ebony and Ivory. So I sat on it for a while because someone else was using the word and I did not want to infringe on what she had going on. But then God started beating me up about that because he was like, this is a word in the dictionary. One of y'all can patent it or put it in writing to keep the other from using it, or both of you can use it for your specific needs and purposes and go forward. And that's exactly what I did. I started saying, I am resilient. And I was talking to myself because so much was going on. That was my self-talk. I am resilient. I can do this. I looked up the definition and it said being resilient meant to overcome obstacles. It meant to overcome barriers. I said, oh, okay, well, that's what I'm doing. Duh, every day. So I am resilient. and I put it on a shirt. That was my tester. I'll never forget. May 7th of 2018, I put it on a shirt. And I posted it and I said, I'm thinking about starting this movement. And it was so many women that were like, oh my God, I'm resilient too. No, I am resilient. So then I started changing it to say, I am resilient. And guess what? You are too. Because I didn't want anyone to think it was about me. I wanted them to feel like if they put this shirt on, it said, I am. So whoever had the shirt on, that's what they were. I didn't want it to be Teia said or sponsored by Teia. You know how we just make everything our own. And I didn't want to do that. And as a result, I started meeting women who were telling me, listen, I read the blogs because the blogs featured women who were resilient in their own right. There's no definition of who's more resilient. You may be resilient from beating cancer. You may be resilient from beating a divorce. Someone may be resilient for not committing suicide or attempting it and it not happening. So whatever measure of obstacle of life that you felt you were able to overcome, that's what I wanted to hear. I needed to hear those stories because sometimes, even as successful as we are, we throw pity parties for ourselves. Oh, it didn't work out. Oh, this didn't happen. Oh, I didn't get that contract. But in this movement, I'm getting a story of people telling me they're beating lupus. They are beating cancer. They got the job that they wanted, or they're getting over the fear of people. They're getting over the anxiety of facing people and truly coming into their own. And so that helped me not only with humility, but it helped me understand that, you know what, this is so much bigger than me.
It's 9 o'clock.
This is so much bigger than me. And once it was bigger than me, then I said, okay, what else can I do? So we went a whole year, a whole lap around the sun with the t-shirts and the swag gear and all of that. We got everybody excited. And then after that, I said, you know what? I grew up on Ebony. I grew up on Essence. I grew up on Jet. And I still subscribe to those magazines. But you have to be at a certain bar to be seen. And that's how women were feeling. Even in growing up, women were feeling, if I didn't look a certain way, I'm never going to be the video girl, or I'm never going to be the it girl, or they're never going to pick me out of a lineup. I'm always going to be in the back of the choir, even though I have the best voice. So I wanted something that celebrated the everyday woman. You know, teachers are hardly celebrated, but every successful person started in a classroom. They could have dropped out in high school. They could have did whatever, college, whatever. But they started off with a teacher telling them, oh, you look so nice today, or you're so smart, or whatever. So I wanted to have a launch pad for women, African-American women, who were doing whatever they were doing that was pivotal for wherever they were. And that's how it started. It started at 25 pages. It was 25 pages.
Yeah.
And here's the thing that I'm going to tell you all tonight. It's very important to follow the leader. Success leaves clues. And I reached out to someone who was a writer for Essence. And I know you're thinking, well, why would you reach out to someone who writes for a magazine that you're eventually going to compete with? And I'll answer that for you. I eventually wanted to compete with them. But in order to compete, you must compare. In order for Burger King to sell the Whopper, McDonald's got to sell the Big Mac. But if they're not selling the same thing, it's not a competition. So I didn't ask her for her cheat codes. I asked her to look at my magazine and tell me what she thought of it. And she said, oh, this is great, but it's too short. 5 pages? Really? And you want to print this? I was like, yes, I want to print it. But I didn't take that criticism as a jab. Like, man, you know what? She just hating. That's what we say in society when people are telling us the truth. We are so naive to truth that when someone is saying it, it immediately comes off as hate. But she was telling me, if this is the level that you want to get to, here's what you have to do. So I don't even remember if I solicit for writers. I just remember my spirit saying, I need help. I know what I'm good at and I know what I'm not. I need help. And so I had 3 women, and they are still with me to this day. Of course, we have 5 writers now, but those 3 women said, whatever you need, I got you. And we're talking about day one. And it wasn't, you guys to understand, it is not you. It is not your product. It is not any of that people buy into. It's actually you. And my coach told me that. She said, people spend money with people they trust. And so because I spent this whole year building a brand that people could trust, when I came out with a magazine, it was just like, oh, okay, we don't care that's 25 pages. We like it. And then the next month when it built to 80 pages and I had those writers writing significantly to the storyline and what we wanted that magazine to look like, it just catapulted from there. And now we're going into volume 2. This is going to be Tuesday, June 1st will be the first issue of volume 2. And I'm like, okay, wow, what are we doing? And the whole message and the premise behind that is we were being resilient. And I say we because even though I'm the editor-in-chief, if everybody stops doing their job, that's just all I am. So it's my baby. I put the finances to it, but I needed a team of people who were really supportive of the movement, not just supportive of movement. So sometimes we have people who are with us because we're moving. So let me just stay connected. Let me just stay connected just in case. Let me just stay connected. And then you have people who are attached to your movement. Whether you take off and go someplace, they're not worried about where they fit. They're not worried about their names being called. They're not worried about any of that. They just want to support what you're doing and help you get to the next level.
So Teia, I'm gonna ask you a question. I love it. Look, she could talk about resilient all day with me, and I'll just be sitting over here, and I'm like, because I know her story when she started out, and to see how she blossomed. Now, you made a good point. You got people that support in movement because you're moving, and you got some people that's with the movement, whether they want to be seen or not. So when in business, how do you go about getting and vetting that team to support your vision, whether you have the budget for them to contribute or not? How do you build that team to help you birth Resilient Magazine?
Well, you don't build it personally. And I say this because I have friends that I've been friends with 30 years. They don't work on any of my businesses. And I know it's a plug and play. In our culture, we feel like, oh man, when I make it, I want to put everybody on. You know, mama's going to be the cook and daddy's going to be the bookkeeper. My cousin's going to work the front door. We have it all figured out. But in reality, I really didn't. You can't audition for help. You can't say, I'm starting a business. Who wants to be the secretary? Who wants to be the banker? You can't audition for that, because once you put people in a position to feel as though you need them and without them, it's not going to happen. That's exactly what's going to happen. What you have to do is build and build and build until people ride by and say, ooh, I want to go inside there. When you're looking at a house being built, no one ever stops and take a picture of the foundation. No one ever stops and take a picture of the drywall and the sheetrock. No one ever stops and take a picture of the people coming out and putting the grass down. But once that roof gets on and once the fixtures get on, then when you ride by, you saying, oh, wait a minute, when did they put that house there? Because the house was coming along the entire time. You never paid it any attention. And so that's how it has to be in business. You have to grow and grow and grow. A lot of times you got to start off doing it all yourself until people who, like I said, are following the movement, not just joining the movement, but they're attached. They take ownership of it. Every writer of that magazine takes ownership of that magazine. They don't just say, I read over my part, it looks good. When they get the copy that says, hey, look from an A to Z, page 1 to page 80, tell me what you think. The feedback that comes back, that lets me know that they are taking ownership of this magazine. They're not just saying, well, my part is correct. So if she got misspelled words from on page 20, that has nothing to do with my page on page 50. Because if the
Wow.
book fails, it didn't matter whether if they stop at page 21, they're not going to make it to 50. So they take ownership of it. And the importance of establishing a team is to hold people accountable. And when you hold them accountable, you don't hold them accountable for how you know them. Like I said, none of my friends work for me, and I'm okay with that. I don't equate that to they don't support me. I equate that to the fact that when they met me, I didn't have this business mind. So this
Right.
business mind grew. It's almost like keeping a 12th grader in kindergarten and saying, well, we started out here. Yeah, but I grew. So now my feet are too small for this desk. This pencil is too little for me to hold. This cot is too small for me to take a nap. But you're still my favorite teacher, but I have to move forward. And so in moving forward, you choose people who are already where you're trying to be.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's
So
good.
if you're picking your team for a business, you choose people who are already there. I chose writers who are already writing and speaking and TEDx speakers. I'm not a TEDx speaker. I'm not a writer to that level. I wrote what I needed to write to get out of grad school. And after I did that, that was it. But writing to the level of a magazine and a blog, no, I need help.
Yeah. And see, that's another thing that business people do not do, especially women. We don't know when to ask for help because we think we Wonder Woman and Superwoman all the time. So I'm glad you made that comment that you have to ask for help. Now in the magazine, which I love because I look, I get the e-subscription, and I be time I get that email, I'm all in. Ernest, my husband said, "What is you reading?" I say the Resiliency magazine that dropped. I said, I got to check out what's going on, and it's so vibrant and pretty. If y'all haven't subscribed to the magazine, whether you get the hard copy or the electronic, y'all need to get it. It is very much laid out. And but my next question is, we talk about asking for help. And that in this season with the new normal, yes, Victoria, it is so pretty. Victoria says it's so pretty.
Oh, thank you, Victoria.
What is the best? Some people think asking for help is a weakness. How do you deal with that when you said you knew you needed help building this magazine, building this brand? How did you approach other individuals or experts to help you?
Well, I hate that people look at asking for help as a weakness. The weakness is not asking for help.
That's good.
And I've always had the team approach in anything I do. I use the word we more than me all the time. And so I knew, again, I didn't make a statement, a blanket statement and say, I'm looking for writers. I've never done that. I will say, if you bloggers want it, I will say that. If you have a resilient story, send it to the blog. But I'm very strategic about how I cherry pick people for this magazine because I knew where I wanted it to go. I didn't want to have a lot of local people because I didn't want it to be a local book. I didn't want to have a lot of friends and family because I didn't want this to be the family reunion book. I didn't want it to be a lot of politics because I didn't want it to turn into I did not want it to turn into or be defined as one thing. What we are certain of is that it is for African American women. I'm never changing that. And I've had people pitch things to me from all over the world. Hey, can you advertise this? Can you talk about this? Can you do that? And I'm like, if it does not tie to African American women, I can't. Because that's how I started off. And I don't ever want to steer away from the reason why I got started. Because we're talking about people who are willing to pay me to have their stuff in there and do different things. But if it's going to take me away from how I started, I don't want it. And so even with that, the people that are on the team, if it ever got to a point where they're going to take me from why I'm doing this or why I got started, then I have to shift. But so far in growing it, it has not been a challenge at all. The challenge has been me being overwhelmed by the fact that, oh my God, we just got another 200 subscribers on this, or we just got another that. People are buying into something that they knew nothing of before, but the excitement, the reputation. And let me, as a business owner, I hear people say this all the time. Well, I'm going to always be myself, and that business is business and personal is personal. At a certain point in time in your life and a level of success, it all runs together.
Yes, it
So
does.
you have to make that decision. People follow me as an individual, and it makes it easy for them to support me as a businesswoman, because the transition and the transparency is the same. Yes, I'm human, but I have to be human out of sight, because in sight, they are coming to figure out what they need to do to be resilient. Anything outside of that, I have to do that on my downtime. And I'm okay with that. And that's what makes that catapult reaction of, let's follow this, let's do this. Also, I never made it about me.
That's good. Now I can contest to that. You never have. Okay, I got 2 questions in the chat. I can contest. She has never made that about her. She will always put others and people first. Because after I ask these 2 questions, I'm gonna tell y'all how she put me on the spot at a conference, y'all. I mean, Stephanie asked here, how do you maintain goals and envision success?
Believe it or not, Stephanie, I write everything down. Even down to my husband being in the hospital, I have sticky notes as to how he's going to get well, how we're going to do different things, and what the doctor says versus what the reality could be. But with my goals, I write them all down. Realistically, every New Year's Eve, I write down the amount of goals for the year that we're going into. So this year I had 21 goals. I take those 21 goals, I put them on my wall, and every time I walk out of that closet, I have to face those goals. Now, that is not to say that every goal that I wrote up there, I'm going to get to. There are some goals from 2016 that I didn't get to, but I don't take that paper down and throw it away. I move that goal over. If it's a real goal, I move it over until the next year. And the reason why I do that is my brain thinks like the Jetsons. I'm somewhere on Mars, but my reality is in Georgia. And so I have to reel myself back in. So I don't go too far, but I have to reel myself back in. But I don't believe that anything is off limits. If I honestly wanted to go to the moon, I could. If I honestly want to do that, I put the work in, study with astronauts, learn what I needed to learn. It's possible. I believe that all things are possible. I cannot read that and not believe that. A lot of times we write goals and then we go back and say, well, that was just too big. Or we tell people. Now, I'm a big action person. I do not tell anybody my goal that does not dream big like I do. I would never tell a coworker or my neighbor that I want to go to the moon. I would tell someone who's already been to the moon that I want to go to the moon, because that person's going to say, oh man, you're going to love it. Oh, it was this, it was that. They're going to hype me up till I keep going with that. But if I tell someone who's never been, they're going to psych me up until I never go. Oh, you sure you want to do that? Oh, that's a lot of money, or that's this, or that's that. You have to maintain your goals by working towards them.
That's
my goal was to have a certain brand by my 40th birthday. That was my goal, and on my 30th birthday. So yes, it took 10 years, but for somebody who just met me this year, they think that, oh wow, she woke up one day and it was like the Easter Bunny. Oh wow, great. God is good to her. He is. But you did not see the 10 years underground. You didn't see me as an ant underground. All you knew is when you walked out with those flip-flops on, you stepped on my house and my friends came and ate your ankle. That's what you saw, but you didn't see me carrying the little dirt to bill it.
Oh,
And
wow.
so that's how you maintain. Envision success. Success is however you defined it. I don't define my success by what I see, because people do not tell you the hidden secrets, the hidden tricks. You find that out on your journey. People don't tell you everything. And so you can't envision what success looks like based off of what you see, because we have apps that will alter our looks, and we have apps that we can type anything. It says, what are you thinking? Oh, I'm thinking about steak and potatoes when I really could be eating a bowl of cereal. So the reality is that you have to define what success looks like to you. If success looks like to you being a stay-at-home mom, raising your kids until they walk across the stage, that is success.
Yes.
Whatever you feel it is to you, that's how you define it. You never define your success off the measurement of someone else's stick.
That's amazing. I love it. Okay, but Victoria asked, Tia, to take on the magazine is a pretty big feat. Did you ever feel overwhelmed, and how did you move past that?
I'm overwhelmed every month. I'm overwhelmed every month. Listen, I was fine when it first started off. We made it to December, and I was like, oh, okay, we're doing good content, great information, everything. And then when Melanie Holt got on the cover in January, that's when the anxiety hit, because I realized at that moment that what I asked God for and what he trusted me with was coming together. And that's a scary feeling, because God is always on go.
Yes.
The only time he stops you is when you're in error. So he's always on go. So now I'm like, oh my God, this lady is talking about my magazine on her show, on the OWN network, and she's on Instagram with it. Like, I was not ready for that, even though the quality of it was ready for that. But I just, the fear came from, this is bigger than me. This is bigger than me. But now every round goes higher and higher. I can't go back to the 25 pages. I can't go back to the, oh, I don't feel like doing this again. This was fun, guys, but I didn't think you would take that seriously. So I don't want to do it anymore. At that point, and when someone from Star, Idaho purchased a 2-year subscription in December. And I said, wait a minute, this lady just purchased a subscription for 2022. I don't even know what I'm going to talk about in March of 2021. And she's already purchased. So that let me know that, okay, this is bigger than me and we got to keep going. And yes, I was overwhelmed, but not overwhelmed to the point where I was just going to produce just to produce. I'm always saying it's enough to make you cry, but not enough to make you quit. If I have to stay up late, if I have to give up the TV, I watch 30 minutes of TV a day, because my television is a laptop, or my television is my Mac, or my television is my phone. Anything that's going to lead to productivity, I don't find it overwhelming. It's challenging, and sometimes it gets me to the point where I'm like, why did I do this again? I'm always trying to be great. I don't want to be great. I want to be a regular person and do regular things. But it's impossible to do it when your mind is telling you, okay, you don't want to do this. I got something else for you. When the radio came about, I was like, I don't even do radio in the city that I'm from. I don't even like the sound of my voice on my podcast. So why would I want to jump into radio? But then after the magazine took off, then I realized that it's all media. It's all forms of media. And some people don't read, but they listen. Right. So cater to everything. And even in that, it's like, okay, well, to whom much is given, much is required. We quote those things, but it's real life. If you're going to say that, if you're going to ask him to enlarge territory, if you're going to ask him to, give you the foundation to be successful, you got to roll with it. And as long as he's providing structure and teams of how to do this, how to do that. And, you know, every 30th or 31st of the month, we pray and press in.
That's good.
That's it.
That's good. So that's amazing, Teia. I love those answers. You talked about the radio show, which Resilient Living, and I remember when you reached out to me and you sent me a Zoom link. Y'all, she funny. She said, I know I got to explain this Zoom.
Right.
And I said, when I saw it, it's like, I said, she up to something. I said, she's doing something. This was back in 2020, around December, when she was doing her goals. And I can attest to Teia, I do my goals for the new year the same time as well. So with the radio show with Resilient Living, you talk about so many things. You've had speakers on, and like you said, you cherry pick who you present the opportunity to. My question is, why are you being strategic on who you give exposure or access to the Resilient platform?
I'm glad you asked that, because I had so many people when the magazine first came out, I'll say about around the August, September issue, I had people who were really upset with me because I didn't ask them to be in it. And they were like, I got a business and you know me. And so, to be honest, I take out a sheet of paper and I close my eyes and I say, okay, God, show me who is going to fit behind this cover person, who's going to fit behind it. Like, every issue is seamless to the point of the theme. If the cover has an author on it, everything on the inside is about authors, writers, etc. If it has a actress on it, everything on the inside is aligning with that cover. So I'm not skipping over anyone. That's it's just good. Not, it can be your time, but it may not be your turn, or it can be your turn and it may not be your time. I'm not skipping over. I promise. It's enough issues and enough African-American women to get everywhere. I had people say, you know what, here lately, because the cover for March, the cover for July, and the cover for August, they are all out of LA. They're all out of Los Angeles, California. I have people like, well, you're going all the way over there to get successful Black women when you live in a city full of successful Black women. And I said, say that again. Say that again. The goal is traction. Home is always going to be there. You're going to always be successful. If you don't make it in the first year of the magazine, that does not mean that you're not resilient. That does not mean that I don't have my eye on you. That does not mean that I don't think that you're worthy of being in my magazine. That just means that it's not your time yet. It took me 12 issues to talk about myself, to put myself on the cover, and I didn't even want to do that. I went back and forth with like 5 people on the team, and they were like, no, you need to do it. And not realizing that now more than ever, I'm living this resilient thing. But even in that, if I thought it was a opportunity of exposure, why not start off with me?
Right. That's good.
I didn't. The whole point was I wanted to pick people in different regions. That's why when we started doing the top 10, I would just pick a city. I got tired of picking random people. I said, you know what? We're going to focus on Houston this month. Or we're going to focus on Ohio this month. Or we're going to focus on New York this month. Or Florida. Because I knew if I could get in those uncharted territories. True story. I made a post and I said, tag your favorite woman in Houston or something like that. And someone tagged this young lady, and she was born in Houston, but she lives in Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. She sent everything. And when she sent it, it said Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. This is about people who live in Houston. I can't use it. So she said, oh, no, yeah, I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I said, well, I tell you what, all is not lost. 2 issues from now, I can use you for something else. Long story short, she ended up getting a feature in the May issue. She said, I need to buy 12 copies of this issue. And I said,
Wow.
for your feature? Like, you know, she's like, yeah, I want to give them to my family and friends. And I said, well, you know what? I'm proud of that. I'm glad that she wants to show her family and friends. She sent me a picture on a Saturday morning, and I looked at the picture and I said, oh my God, he looks like Dwayne from Tony. So I text her back and I said, oh, wow, nice family. Your cousin looks like Dwayne from Tony. She said, that is Dwayne.
Wow.
So I said, I'm sorry. Like, you know what today is? It's our anniversary. Never rains in Southern California, Tony. Like, Raphael Sadiq, Tony.
Wow.
Like, yeah, that's my cousin. That's why I wanted to get the magazines, because they're getting ready to do a little showcase or whatever. And I wanted to show them what it was about. And I said, okay. First,
Wow.
I said, thank you, Lord. Second, I said, this is why it's so important. It's plenty of fish where I am, but my net and my rod is too long to catch the fish where I am. So I could not cast my nets, in a sense, in the deep if I'm still plucking at the shore. I'm not getting anything. So yes, I have successful lawyers, bankers, doctors, all of that in my reach. But what about the ones that I can't reach? Because at the end of the day, the people closest to you already know you. And they hold the trigger on whether they're going to support you or not. If you upset them at the barbecue, or if you don't show up for one event, you fired.
Oh, wow.
People, family, and friends will fire you over the smallest things quickly. So I had to build a brand, build an image that was further, so that I could use those resources to support my local people. I'm going to come in your boutique, but I'm going to take the money from this supporter in Star, Idaho, and I'm going to use that money to support your local boutique or your local restaurant or your whatever. So once I started painting that narrative, it was easier to see. But I had to get to that point.
Right. That's good. Oh, these Stephanie and Victoria tearing it up in this chat. Okay, Victoria got, let me see, 3 questions. She said, Teia, how do you vet your opportunities? What % is all new and uncharted territory versus your own planning? I think you kind of answered that, but you know, I'm gonna make sure from Victoria. And then she said, have you ever turned down a major opportunity? Stephanie hollering back. She love all them questions.
So how do I vet them? Believe it or not, I have a cover for everyone that I want on a cover. I have a cover for Stacey Abrams. I have a cover for Sarah Jakes Roberts. I have a cover for Oprah. I have a cover for everybody that I want to see on this magazine. And what I do is I research. I go get the email addresses. I find out who the publicist is. I say, hey, this is what we have, and I want to present it to your client. I want to present it to whomever, and I give them history. So this is why it's important to make sure that all your ducks are in a row prior to launching. Because when I approached Sarah Jakes Robinson, she didn't tell me no. She had a book coming out. So, you know, that's important. But when I approached her, I showed her what she would look like on the cover. I showed her the questions. I showed her a website. I showed her social media. I showed her the comments from Melanie Holt and from Sassy Jones in February. I showed her that. And when you're launching something to people of that caliber, you have to have substance. If I tell you I can cook, I got to have some people who've already eaten my food.
Right.
You can't just take my word for it. So when I'm vetting these people, I'm going off of their interaction, what they stand for, how they support African-American women, how more African-American women can support them. That's how I look at it. When I'm going in uncharted territory, one thing about me, I'm not scared of anything. You are either going to tell me yes or no. And if you tell me no, by the time you tell me no, you have already looked at everything that I have to offer, and you'll say yes eventually. The people who told me no in August of 2020 are looking for me now in one, because I didn't let their no's stop me. I just said, okay, what I have, and I'm going to produce excellence, and eventually you'll catch on. Eventually you'll want to be a part of it. Eventually you'll be a subscriber. Eventually you'll want the hard copy. Eventually you'll want to support it and see it where it needs to go eventually. But in the meantime, I stood behind what I said I was going to do, and I did it. Yes, I've turned down opportunities because they did not meet the first requirement of the magazine, and that's being an African-American woman. I mean, I don't want anyone to feel that this is a knock against any other race. I'm open to minorities, and I have featured minorities on the inside. However, you have to be a minority. There's so many magazines that cater to different genres, different ethnicities, different political agendas. I wanted my magazine to be consistent. I've had people tell me plenty of times, hey, I will pay you X amount of dollars, but my client has to be on a cover. I am so sorry, but I have told these people for an entire year that this is an African-American woman magazine. There's no way I can put your client on the cover. There's no amount of money that can make me not only sell out my dream, but sell out to my audience. And sometimes we do that. We shift and say, well, you got to do it this way. I believe in changing my audience and not changing my message. So if I ever got to the point where I wasn't hearing me, I'm not going to just change my message and say, do you hear me now? I'm going to relocate. I'm going to do that. So yes, that has happened a lot, Victoria. Just here recently, becoming a Forbes writer, I didn't want to write on the subjects that I have in my magazine because I did not want them to not support my magazine, but then use my brain power of what I would talk about for the African-American woman in that instance. So I went the business route. I'm going to talk about business development because that's for any race. But if I'm going to talk about resiliency, then I got to put that in my own book. You understand?
That's
so even though Forbes is bigger than the Resilient magazine, I'm still not going to take from my child to feed someone else's.
That's good. That's good, Tia. But Victoria and Stephanie loving these comments. I am too. I'm like, Lord, I got to watch the clock, Jesus, because we can talk all night, and I love it. But I wanted to tell y'all, I'm gonna tell you what Tia did to me. I was at a speaking engagement. This was the second time me and her was in public together, and I was teaching everybody and talking about the opportunity tax zones. That was before it got real popular, and everybody was talking about. I was telling them, I'm like, a lot of us have tons of content we done wrote for companies, journal books that we have wrote of our experiences. We have wrote black instructions for people how to do stuff, and we just sitting on it. And I was at the event, and I said, some of y'all need to take that stuff out, and you need to start monetizing. So when I had to introduce myself, I called myself doing something short and sweet. Let me tell you what Tia did. Instead of Tia standing up asking a question, Tia stood up and said, no, she did a public service announcement. She said, no, she said, Teresa is not giving herself credit. And through Tia, I'm going to tell you all how she has helped me, because I was always taught, let another man speak well of you. So to try to translate and flip and start bragging about all I do, I said, okay, she got something now. I am shortchanging myself. So I want to say to Tia on this live, on this event, and for every woman that's listening, stop letting other people speak well of you. Toot your own horn. Because the more you toot it, it's going to cause them to come to you and ask you, okay, how did you toot that horn? Or how do you get to that place to toot your horn? But I am not going to hold Tia now. All right, ladies in the chat, y'all got some more questions. Y'all be to tell me, because I got to let Tia go. Because remember, she got to take care of her husband. And I believe in taking care of her husband first.
Yeah.
But I just love everything you're doing. But I think you had made a recent announcement around your birthday about the Resiliency brand. Did you not? What is
I,
that?
I did. So again, you know, we have BET, we have Hulu, Netflix, all these different things. But I was just like, again, what about the everyday woman who is doing things that it needs to be seen? We have people making movies, doing small productions, film, television, all of that stuff. But where do they go? So actually, it's been in since February. It's a lot of work, so it probably would not be finished until February. But I started the Resilient Network with the help of some very, very good people. And by midsummer, we should have our movies going. We have our Roku. It's just a lot of legal work into it. If I'd have known more about it, I probably wouldn't have done it. But I'm proud of that. I study Oprah like someone studying a second language. And she had a talk show, which I did radio. She had a magazine, which I did magazine. She has her own network, which I am establishing my own. And again, it's not about duplicating, it's about emulating. That's Oprah good. Has me by maybe 20 years in age. And so, you know, when people see Beyonce, they say, oh man, she reminds me of Tina Turner. Yep. And so someone coming behind her, they're going to say, oh man, you remind me of Beyonce. So I wanted to be that to Oprah. I wanted someone to say, oh man, you remind me of Oprah. And eventually, I want someone to come behind me and say, oh man, you remind me of this lady named Teia Acker. Wow, she was like this, this, and this, and this. So in order for that, I don't have the financing that she has yet. Because
I like that word, yet.
Right, because if you study a person that you're trying to grow and be like, you'll understand that they start off just like you. She actually started off worse than me. I grew up in a different time from her. I didn't have the challenges that she had, but she made it work. And even though it took her years to make it work, I'm not afraid of it taking me years for it to work. I'm not afraid of that so long as it worked. And I made a post the other day and I said, I don't want to hear that it's, I don't want to know whether it's hard. I want to know whether it's possible. I don't care how much money it costs. I don't care how I get it. Well, I do care how I get the money, but I'm just saying I'm not going to stress on that. But what I want to achieve, I'm going to achieve. And I study her because what she set out to do, if you ever saw her story, when she first started her network, they made her put up 95% of the money because they didn't believe that it would take off the way that it did. And imagine that it took off the way that it did, and she had already owned 95% of the Oprah Winfrey Show.
That's amazing.
So when she cashed in on her 95%, not only did she go back to the table and say, okay, so now Harpo Studios is going to run this. Y'all go back to y'all corners. We got this. And then not only did she say Harpo Studios is going to do this, but now not only am I going to run this, but I'm going to put it on my own thing.
That's good.
I own 95% of it and you only own 5%. So when people are betting against me, I don't mind fronting my own dreams because that's less of the payout, that's less of the shout out, that's less of the call outs. At that point, when the speech is made, is I like to thank God, I like to thank my family and a host of a few friends, neighbors, and cousins. I don't have to pull out the bounty paper towel and it's just rolling. And I'm reading off names as if I'm reading the Declaration of Independence. I don't have to do that. And so I followed her pattern and you know, Rome is not built in a day. But right. I look at the success of what it has done in a year. I measure my level of success. Stephanie asked that earlier. I measure my level of success in 1 year. Most
That's
people
good.
do it in 1 month. If they start a business and don't make money that first month, oh my God, I just don't know about the small business thing. I measure it in 1 year. If I cannot produce what needs to be produced in 1 year, I'll leave it alone. But if I can show traction, and that's with me doing the work, that's not me sitting on the egg like a hen waiting on it to move around. That's me moving around. And
That's
so
good.
1 year, if it has taken off and done what it's supposed to do, then we're on the right track. If not, then okay, God, that was not what you had for me to do. Let's do something else. But everything tying to that one word has to take off, because that one word not only reflects who I am, but it reflects every woman that is targeted for my audience, and that's being resilient.
Oh my God. Look, okay. Y'all, I am just so I'm just so elated and I'm happy for her. Yes, Stephanie, she said thanks. She said the talk was so inspiring. She said she going to channel this energy into true
Yes.
resilience. That is our goal. That was my goal tonight, because we have to be resilient regardless of what we see in the natural. But like Tia say, you may not be on Earth. You may be on Mars or Saturn or Pluto, but
Yeah.
you can achieve and accomplish your resiliency through business. And like she said, focus on the people who are already where you're trying to go.
Right.
And one thing she did say, she does support local businesses, but she can't do that if she don't cast her net out wide enough to
Right.
do so. So I have enjoyed this conversation this evening. Thank you so much for your time. I know if you wasn't in the room, y'all missed a treat. But if you're watching this on the replay, Tia, how can they reach out to you? How can they do public speaking, purchase the magazine, subscribe to the network, the radio show? You got all this stuff going on. Where's
Yeah.
all this stuff in one place so they can go?
They can actually go to the teiaacker.com website, and it has everything separated where you can click to go to the Resilient magazine, or you can click to go to the radio show, or etc. But the magazine is resilientmagazine.com if they are interested in listening to Resilient Living with Tia. It's every Saturday at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, noon Central Time. It's based out of Houston. And that's where we have the Resilient Living Room, and we talk about all kinds of things that are all things resilience. The Resilient Network is www.theresilientnetwork.com. So there are a lot of ways, and then if you just Google, it'll take you where you need it to go. But there are a lot of things. I'm on social media under all of those devices. I'm in all of those vices and those names as well. So I am not untouchable. But I do make myself unreachable to certain things that I know are not tied to my goals. So it's a funny way of reading things without reading them. So I channel that before I open stuff, before I respond to things. I always ask myself, is this going to be tied to my goal? Because if it's not, there's no sense in responding and wasting anybody's time.
That's good. That's good. All right, ladies. Thank you, Victoria. Thank you, Stephanie, for tuning in and listening to Startup Grind Women's Week with Startup Grind Jacksonville, where we were talking about Faith Fight Friday, meeting the moment, why business resiliency matters. On tomorrow, 1 o'clock noon Eastern Standard Time, we will be talking about Saturday self-care with Thomasina Gaskins. She got some treats for y'all. Y'all need to make sure you in the room for that. And then Sunday, we'll be with Jana DeVoe Biggins. She's going to talk about her book, The Craft of the Follow-Up, at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sunday. So stay tuned. This SG Women Week is still going and thriving, because we're going to celebrate women this month. I want to thank Teia Acker so much for her time. So as always, I give my speakers the last word, last nugget of advice, and we're going to sign off for this evening. One word, Tia, to encourage our listeners now and when they watch the replay.
One word: resilient. Duh.
There you go. There you go. I know you was gonna say that. So
yes,
because business resiliency matters, give them one actionable goal. Since Stephanie asked you about goals, what do they need to be doing now mid-year? We mid-year right now. What do they need to be doing?
Well, we're going into the third quarter, so I wouldn't even suggest focusing on what you didn't accomplish. Make new goals if you have to. Streamline some of the goals that you had, and you're feeling like, because once July 1 hits, that's the third quarter, and you really should be pivoting yourself to plan for 2022. So at this point, it's June. If it hasn't happened, don't worry about it. Give yourself a fresh start and plan towards next year. But really strategically plan and start aligning things with it. Figure out what you can spare versus what you can take on, what you can add on. Take everything that you're doing and write it on a sheet of paper. And if those outings, if those goals, if those calls, those Zooms, those clubs or whatever, if none of those things are tied to your goal, eliminate them and start over.
That's good. Thank you, Tia. Thank you, ladies, for listening and watching. And remember, get your Resilient magazine.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Every year, Startup Grind hosts our SG Women Month, proudly recognizing the accomplishments of successful women leaders all over the world. These women are founders, venture capitalists, engineers, executives, educators, and more, who represent our community all around the world. This month, SG Women Month is proudly presented by Silicon Valley Bank and Google for Startups.